Thank you. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, where I fell in love with my high school sweetheart. We proceeded to date for many years, and then eventually got married. We wound up having 2 children, 2 boys. We knew that we didn't want to raise our children in the city, so we found a lovely place called Goshen, New York, a few blocks away from here. With a white picket fence, the house, and all our dreams and aspirations behind it. But something wasn't right. She would often tell me that. For instance, she would say she was going to the doctor's office, and I wouldn't ask why. And when she would return, I didn't ask her how it went. And then there was soccer and football, and I would be there physically, but mentally I would be somewhere else. I felt like a strange person in a strange town. She wasn't happy. One day I came home from work, I was sitting on the couch, something didn't feel right. They weren't coming home. So I proceeded to go to the neighbor's house. I knocked on his door a few blocks away. There was something different about him. And I says, I have a problem. I can't find my family. He said to me, Dominick, your family's not the problem. You are. Realizing my secret was out, he said to me, I once felt like you did. It's going to be all right. And I believed him. I had hope. This was my God's moment that changed the rest of my life. What's a God moment? For me, realizing that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you're ready to do the inside work, the hard inside work. What was my inside work? I had to be thorough and honest from the very start. I had a mentor who helped me through this problem. I read a lot of literature to get to know myself. And then when I go to bed at night, I take a moral inventory of myself and try to do better the next day. Those were some of the things that I had to do. Some other people told me their story, and I'll tell you theirs. There was this man named Pat. He had 2 lovely daughters and a lovely wife. He worked in New York City. He would isolate a lot. He thought only coming home with a paycheck was good enough. His wife asked him to leave. His parents had a bungalow on the beach. But it wasn't so fun for Pat. It was in the middle of December and cold, and he was broken. He would take the subway on Coney Island at the platform, cold, waiting for the subway, every day. One day, he gets on the train. There's a man sitting there by himself. Pat steps into the train, and the man gets up and sits next to him. And he starts talking to Pat. Maybe it was fear. I don't know what it was. But Pat got off the train. Pat would go back home at this bungalow, and he would drink in isolation and fear. A few days later, he's on the same platform, the same train, the same man. He sees the man. He doesn't enter the train car. And he felt different. He felt like the man gave him hope. There was something different that time. But the train doors closed. And he had regret that he didn't go on. And out of nowhere, the train doors reopened, and Pat stepped into the train. That man and Pat spoke the whole way to the city. That was Pat's God's moment that changed his life. Pat, his 2 children who went to college, his wife, are all unity in family. That same man, 34 years later, is still one of Pat's closest friends. Pat changed. Another story I have is a woman called Mary. She told me her story. I was intrigued of her story. Mary was a lovely woman whose husband was very abusive. She was two young children, two boys, and she didn't want to get divorced and take the kids. One day, Mary dropped the children off at school, and returning to home, the house was on fire, and they lost everything. The husband blamed her for this. They moved from house to house for many years, till the children got old enough to leave, and so did Mary. Mary wound up moving to Monroe, New York, a little apartment. She would isolate in this apartment, and thinking no one loved her, very low self-esteem, didn't talk to the children, didn't talk to anybody. Her best thinking was to write a letter, and she was going to put it in the mailbox and take a handful of prescription medication. Unbeknownst to Mary, she put the letter in the wrong mailbox. It was her neighbor's mailbox. The neighbor went to retrieve her mail, and she read Mary's letter. She called 911, and they saved Mary's life. On awakening at the hospital bed, her two older sons and their wives were standing there holding her hand and telling her how much she meant to them, how much they loved her. Mary had her God moment and did the inside work to change the rest of her life. Mary proceeded to go to her son's house and live there. She became a grandmother many times over again. She was so proud and loving. She was honest, integrity, and if anybody who would meet her would have smiled. Mary did the inside work, and it changed her life. There's one more story, one more of a man called John. John worked for New York City, and he was drinking and doing drugs. Till one day New York City found out, and they fired him. Thinking his future was behind him, and pride told him not to go to his mother's house or his aunt's house, would have definitely welcomed him back. He wound up being homeless in Alphabet City, in the east side of Manhattan. And there he laid, broken. His mother would often walk around the east side of Manhattan and ask people, "Have you seen John? Have you seen him?" Till one day, one woman said, "I think I might know where he is." And she walked into this abandoned building, and there was John laying on a cot. This woman proceeded to get on her knees and caress John's hair and tell her that you loved and missed and it was going to be all right. When she was saying that, a light was coming through the window, and John had his God moment. And John did the inside work to change. Today's John is a very successful businessman. He employs hundreds of people around the world. He's a loving father, but he never forgets where he came from. The hand that was freely given to him, he gives back. He often says, "He who matters doesn't judge. He who judges doesn't matter." I'm proud to call him my friend, and he's in my life. So I told you the three stories about these three people. What happened to me? For me and my wife got remarried again. We had two little children, a boy and a girl. My two oldest sons grew up to be men, who I'm very proud of today. I changed. I did the inside work. And I hope, if you're not happy with your life and open to having a God moment and willing to do the inside work, you can change too. Thank you.